He has multiple international and national awards for entrepreneurship, including our own CNBC Asia Business Innovative Leader of the Year in 2017 and more recently CNBC Awaaz Entrepreneur of the Year for 2019. Please welcome V. Vaidyanathan, Managing Director and CEO, IDFC First Bank, to deliver this keynote on the theme Smart Technologies in Banking and its Evolving Implications. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It really is a pleasure to talk on this wonderful subject, Smarter India, and the impact of smart ecosystem in banking and its implication for banking. So, now, when we say smart banking or the smart ecosystem, while all of us know about the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile and all that, I'd like to just set up a quick context of a term which I'm going to use for the rest of my speech. So, when we say smart ecosystem, I'm going to use these eight forces together as the smart ecosystem. Number one, the fact that we got over 1 billion mobile phones, 1 billion biometric authentication of individuals, which is the Aadhaar program, a large number, almost 80 or 85% banking penetration. So together, by itself, it's powerful, but banking plus Aadhaar plus mobile as a combination embedded into the bank account becomes and makes for a very, very powerful combination which has many implications, as you will discover later in the speech today. To top up these three, I'm going to add to that the fact that all of us realize that data is a very powerful force. The fifth force I'm going to use today in the context of smart ecosystem is the concept of analytics. The sixth force, which is part of the ecosystem, is the social media, because India has close to about 326 million social media users. And the seventh force which I'm going to talk about is the emergence of credit bureau. That's a very powerful thing. Maybe until 10 years ago, credit bureaus were not very much existent in India, and close to about 100 million trade lines is all that existed. Today, close to about 600 million trade lines exist, and close to 329 million unique customers who have taken loans from the banking system or non-banking finance system exist on a single database, which is called the credit bureau. Then the eighth part of the ecosystem we're going to talk about is the new generation of people who are now emerging or getting born into the digital age, obviously for whom who have not seen the branch and all that stuff and who already operate on the mobile. All these eight forces I talked about as the new smart ecosystem. What is the implication of this on the rest of us and other industries, as well as specifically for the banking system? One of the biggest implication of this entire ecosystem we talked about is the rapidly how fast we can cover up the digital infrastructure. If you think of POS machines, the number of POS machines in India, even at the stroke of digitization in 2016, was only 1.5 million POS machines. In just 2 years, that number has moved from 1.5 million POS machines to 4.8 million POS machines now. How did that happen? Because the POS machines as such were costing, physical POS machines, for most of you in the banking industry would know that, in today's currency, basically it costs about 10,000 rupees for the physical POS machine. The MPOS, that cost anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 rupees. But the QR code costs next to nothing. Therefore, you will see that the emergence of this new ecosystem-based, QR code and all that, now suddenly that 1.5 million acquiring shops has now become 4.5 million, and that has no limit. It can become 10, it can become 15, it can become 20. Street vendor these days, who's probably selling newspapers at the subway, etc., they probably put up a small out there saying that, look, or a vegetable vendor will have a QR code. Now, why? If there was a POS machine, he could not have afforded the POS machine. So therefore, I'm trying to again describe to you that what we describe as the ecosystem or the smart ecosystem is enabling us to reach such entities or outlets which we could not in an affordable manner reach such people. So that's the first implication. The second implication, when you look at US, for example, US has close to about 330 to 340 million people. Any guess but how many people have a credit card in the US? It'll be hard for you. It's 189 million people. Out of the 330 million people live in that country have a credit card. The amount of outstanding on the credit card is $1 trillion. India has barely touched 1 trillion rupees today. And India, for its 1.2 billion people, has only 45 million credit cards against 189 million cards in the US. When you see these numbers, it does inspire us that whether in the form of a physical plastic that all of us will carry, or in the form of a card that they will carry in the wallets, it is bound to happen that this story is dramatically set to change. In terms of the mortgage market, again, US has $9.4 trillion outstanding in mortgages. India is barely touching about 280 or 290 billion dollars today, 20 lakh crores. If we see the entire consumer credit market, again for 330 million people, even adjusted for the fact that India's per capita income is maybe $2,000 and US is $60,000, it's 1:30. Everything we are in dramatically lower penetrated than many of these countries. That is why this whole ecosystem that we talked about, the biggest power of this ecosystem is going to be to make such penetration possible, which is not possible in the physical architecture or old clunky architecture that India carried in the past, whether disburse loans or give credit cards, open bank accounts. I remember very well when the merger happened between IDFC Bank and Capital First. Lata Venkatesh was the person who was, quizzing me. She gave me a very hard time. So she kept telling me, no, Mr. Vaidyanathan, tell me, how are you going to get liabilities? So I told her, no, Lata, it's a big market, growing market, just that. I tried my best. But every 2 minutes in a speech, in an interview of 15 minutes, she kept coming back to me, no, this is very hard, no, very hard, this is so much, people are, I'm telling you, she gave me a hard time, but the ecosystem is so dramatically changing. And if we believe the new ecosystem and the fact that we can ride that ecosystem, then nothing is impossible, because that opportunity of credit, that opportunity for SIP, that opportunity for mutual funds, that opportunity for broking, that opportunity for banking, that opportunity for liabilities, everything, if you attach an E in front of it and make it electronic, then it has no limit to how many segments you can penetrate. Again, credit. Many times we face this situation all the time. I think people are still repeatedly saying, oh no, why is credit growing too fast? Retail credit is growing at 20% per year. Oh my God, we're quite concerned because that's too high when Indian banking system is growing only at 7. But what people don't understand, and why pundits will always get it wrong, is that because certain segments and sub-segments of the Indian banking system, which could not be financed earlier, are beginning to get financed today. That is opening up segments and categories. And therefore, when people look at the concept of saying that why will the Indian banking system evolve so well in the new ecosystem, people don't get it. It's too powerful a force. The ability of being able to wire money to each other for small transactions, small tickets in a very viable manner, it's an infinite force. So any number you look at, this game has to change. And the rocket booster behind this change, because India is not playing only one rocket booster of saying, okay, we are going to have greater penetration. It is rocket booster number 2 is the analytics platform. Rocket booster number 3 is the demographic power that is coming behind it. The rocket booster number 4 is the affordability that's going down the segments. So there are too many of them that are powering the story ahead. So it's something that I'm particularly very excited about. I'm of course, a big fan of consumer financing, and I just love it. And I like to do the small ticket loans at great velocity, speed, and affordability and all that. But I'm an even bigger fan of livelihood financing. Livelihood financing is when you're lending to someone and the person is earning a direct livelihood out of it. Like you're financing cattle, you're financing cows, financing goats, you're financing, a truck. These are all directly helping to earn and directly help to pay you back. And I am a big fan of it. I really want to build on that space, and I believe this new ecosystem is able to make it happen. Just about 2 weeks ago, I was in a village, and we just met the people who were, talking about financing buffaloes and financing cows. Again, there is a fantastic opportunity out there. And that market, as and when the new ecosystem is emerging about how to track a cow and how to track its insemination, how to track its movements, that really becomes a really powerful way of reaching credit to the bottom of the pyramid, not just to the top for corporates and all that. Earlier, what was happening for a long time in India is that any form of service, any form of banking service, whether opening a bank account or getting credit or getting mutual funds or investing in insurance or let me say taking every one of these was available only at the upper strata, and it was almost as if people in the bottom of the pyramid were living in another stone age with no bank account, no insurance, no mutual fund, no loans, nothing. The impact of this technology in people's lives, not just for our business, impact on their lives is dramatic in the way the new ecosystem is now opening up. This fifth implication is the startup ecosystem, and this is really very profound for all people in the banking system. Now, got to think. I took some time to really think about this. Now, for a long time, when you and me think of credit cards, how do we issue a credit card? There's a bank that issues a credit card. When it issues a credit card, what do? We pay. When the bill comes on the due date, we pay, like anybody else pays. Now, bank doesn't pay you for paying you back. They say, fine, you paid me, thank you, right? But now, supposing there is a credit card platform that's coming up, or a fintech that's coming, a startup that's coming up, saying, come and pay through me, and for paying through me, I pay you some rewards points. Now, suddenly the bank's saying, hey, what's going on here? You know, he's paying me, but he's coming and paying through you, you're giving him rewards for it, right? Now, they don't stop there. Then after that, they want to give certain value-added services. So if there are 20 card issuers, and someone is saying, come and pay through me into each of these guys, and I pay you rewards for it. Now, banking system credit card is wired for a particular, P&L. Debit cards. Banks always said, okay, in the banking system, we charge interchange for overseas travel. It happens, all of us are paying traveling, maybe 1%, 2%, whatever, it's standard par for the course for banks. But there's some fintech coming up and saying that come and pay through me, through my app, interchange is zero. Now the entire model of that bank, which was used to spending thousands of crores of rupees by just making people go overseas and take 1 or 2% of that business model is gone. And it's not gone for sure, but certainly it's aggregating somewhere else. Banks don't issue debit cards to say teenagers, in the sense there's add-on credit card, but no add-on debit cards. Now there's an app that comes up and says, come through me, and I will give you a debit card, and not only that, I will give you value-added services on top of this debit card. Value-added services, which means I will tell your parent, the parent can issue a debit card to your child through the app. I not only can you pay a debit card, use the debit card, but also I will give you value-added services about where did the money get spent. I am restricting usage at bars. So basically, there are some value-added services that are coming here, which a normal debit card did not give you those value-added services. So the point I'm trying to make to you is that apart from this existing large number of existing banking services you took for granted as the service, there are some services sitting on top of it, which is giving value-added services which the existing ecosystem was not giving. One thing is sure, apart from the existing system that ran for a long time manual, eventually moved to electronic, but beyond electronic, adding a service layer on top of it for analysis, MIS, modeling, etc., which is a third factor that's coming about, that's too powerful. And I believe that all that will open up the market. So therefore, if you think of this entire ecosystem, the 5 implications that I brought out to you, the fact is these are very profound implications happening. And therefore, when we look forward 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, I'm very thrilled. If we can play this ecosystem, then we are winners, we are ultimate winners. And I believe that will be our biggest success if we can continue to play this ecosystem really very, very well. So these are, some significant implications, let me say, of this whole digital ecosystem that's coming our way. It's incredibly exciting. It's liberating. It's going to open up the markets. It's going to be business opportunity. It's going to take people down the pyramid. It's going to make an enabling proposition. It's going to do livelihood financing. It is just so powerful that I think the next many years, and let me say decades are too far to even talk these days, but certainly the next, let me say, 4 or 5 years is going to be unbelievably exciting for all of us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.